Hello. Welcome back to Flipping Pages, Stirring Sauces. Um, First, I would like to say thank you to my subscribers and those who have liked and shared and have commented. I want to shout out my godson. Love you, love you, love you. And I would also like to say thank you to Cicely for donating or for sending me this book called 100 Amazing Facts About the Negro. It was written by Joel Rogers, and it's available on Amazon, and it is being presented under the fair use portion of the Copyright Act for educational and research purposes, because melanated people need to be educated about some of the things we have accomplished. And it's a well-known fact that, they changed our history, they changed our accomplishments, and they lied to us about who we are as a people. And this book will shed some light on some of those facts. I'm going to read the back. J.A. Rogers devoted over 50 years of his life to his research. He had not only looked at world history, but also at the history of people of African origin, and had shown how their history is an inseparable part of the history of mankind. And I'm loving this book, and it has shows some pictures here, and it draws some parallels, and I'm just gonna read what is written, the caption that is written under some of these pictures. I don't know if you can see them very well, but I'm gonna read the caption that is below them. And it says, "A black champion of Germany and a white one." Saint Maurice, celestial saint of Germany, wearing the German eagle on his head. And then that's the first picture, and then the second picture shows Hitler centuries later, also with a German eagle. And then the third picture, golden jeweled mask of Saint Maurice in the treasure of the Abbey of Saint Maurice in Switzerland. It says, note the Negroid aspect of the mask. I'm gonna push it right up so you can see what I'm talking about. This is a mask down here. That is Hitler wearing the eagle, and that is our ancestor there wearing the eagle. So similarities, parallels. And the next page, it shows Glenn Alfred A. Dodds, and as you can see, he's light-skinned, but that's a Negro. And this other page, I'm going to read the caption as well, and it's showing various statues which are Negroid statues. And it says here, ancient Negro gods of the Old and New World. The Sphinx, distinctly Negroid, especially the mouth. The Uranus on the forehead is a sign of divinity. Venus of William Dwarf, woolly hair beast, hips and labia majora, like those of African bushwoman. The face was probably painted on. And then the third statue is Negro deity from Nicaragua, Central America, probably tens of thousands of years old, from American Museum of Natural History. And then the fourth picture is Negro idols from prehistoric Mexico. Gigantic head of Negro god from Yucatan, Mexico, one of the oldest known representations of a human being in the new, wow, this says world instead of world, YORLD. Interesting. All are indisputable proof of the Negro's great antiquity and that he did not start as a slave to white people. And what that is saying is that the Negro did not start as a slave to white people. And people often wonder why these old statues have the noses missing and the lips missing. Well, Alexander the Not So Great is responsible for that, because he and his army went around knocking the noses and lips off of these statues in order to hide the fact that these statues were made by and are of melanated people. So people refer to him as Alexander the Great. He wasn't so great. He was a pillager, a murderer, and a thief. And these are the pictures that I was reading about. You can see the one there on my left, probably your right, is very much Negroid looking. So is the Sphinx, and so are the rest of pictures. And these are pictures of melanated men who they are Congressional Medal and Victoria Cross winners, although I'm not too sure that the Victoria Cross is really something to be proud of. But I'm going to leave that aspect of it there for now. This first section that I'm going to read is, these neighbors of mine, they never come out into their backyard and start making noise until I come out into my backyard and try to present something to my brothers and sisters. Then they feel, but you know what? I guess it's their home and they have a right to do what they do. So I'm just going to read a little bit about J.A. Rogers, his beginnings, and where he ended up, and the fact that he went incognito, I guess, to survive. J.A. Rogers was born on September 6, 1880 in Negril Parish, Westmoreland, Jamaica, British West Indies, to Samuel Rogers, a school teacher and Methodist minister, and Emily Johnstone. Emily bore Samuel 4 children: Joel, Augustus, Martin, Ivy, and Oswald. When I once asked him where he got the name Joel, his answer was simple. Joel was Samuel's first son in the Old Testament. Joel's mother died in 1886 in Buff Bay of dysentery, about a month after the birth of Oswald. A grieving widower, crying and all broken up, Samuel soon moved to St. Anne's Bay, where he met and courted his second wife, who bore him another 7 children, the first one born in May 1888. In the meantime, Ivy, born in 1884, was sent to live with her maternal grandmother, who had a girls' school in Savannah-la-Mar. Yes, it is Savannah-la-Mar, not Sav-la-Mar or Sav, as we say today. Nobody bothers to pronounce it correctly. But yes, it is Savannah-la-Mar. Ivy did not cherish that experience, remembering her grandmother as stern and very hard on her. Samuel moved from school to school, always trying to better his financial situation. In the end, he became the manager of a large plantation, Stettin. When we were in Jamaica in 1965, Joel remembered the location exactly, recognizing the roads leading to it, but the estate itself was gone. Joel remembered his stepmother, not unkindly. He felt that she had treated her stepchildren well, according to her lights, but that her love was for her own children. And Joel and his brother Martin were none too pleased when they saw her pregnant again and again. Now there will be even less affection for us. The problem, the way Joel saw it, was with his father. Yes, who was excessively stern with the boys, down to the youngest, Ian, born in 1900. While the girls remembered a different side of their father. Anyway, his father had an education, as had his Uncle Henry, a surveyor, while with 11 children. All Samuel could do for his own children was to be sure they had a good basic education. Joel never forgave him for that, nor that he did not give him much guidance. However, his Uncle Henry had a large library, and Joel read and read and read. Reading is good. After failing to get a scholarship for college, Joel joined the British Army and served with the Royal Garrison Artillery at Port Royal. When his unit was about to be transferred abroad, a medical examination revealed a heart murmur, and Joel was considered unfit for foreign service. By chance, he met a friend in Kingston who told him that his brother had immigrated to the United States and liked it there. Joel decided to go. It is the end of July here in southern Ontario, but it feels like March or April. The weather is all screwed up. While the Jamaica of his day was quite color conscious, Joel did not think of himself in terms of color, but rather in terms of class. His father had not allowed him to play with the black children on the plantation. After all, he came from a family of status, light-skinned, with household help. It therefore came as a great shock when, in the New York City of 1906, he was discriminated against in a Times Square greasy spoon. The rage and humiliation he must have felt were still evident as he retold the story throughout his life. He had a number of jobs in New York City as a delivery man and worked briefly in a bookstore in Mount Clair, New Jersey, where he was introduced to as our latest arrival from Cuba. Imagine that. He was being passed as white since Jamaicans were considered, regardless of complexion, colored. He did not like that and eventually went to Canada. However, in New York of 1906, he loved Coney Island and in later years liked to go there at least once a year. He also enjoyed the cartoon, the Cats, the Catsiana Jammer Kids. Never heard of it until I picked up this book, which was popular at the time. Joel went to Chicago where he studied commercial art for 9 years, supporting himself as a Pullman porter, only to discover that the only work open to him, even after getting a honorable mention for his work, was a house painter. He remained a Pullman porter, which paid well, gave him the opportunity to visit the 48 states and to meet many interesting people until he moved back to New York. Some of his experiences as a Pullman porter were fictionalized from Superman to Man. Although fictional, the historical facts are true. I have always felt that you hear his voice. Meet the man mentioning all the books he read, the authors, the art he saw. He had been reading all his life, had been deeply impressed by Dumas, by Victor Hugo, Les Miserables, by Plutarch, Lives of Illusions, Greeks and Romans, and had studied the works of Chopinier for 10 years. He identified with Chopinier's feeling that human goodness consists of treating others with consideration, sympathy, and generosity. That goodness consists of treating the welfare and rights of others as important as one's own rights. Joel became a naturalized citizen in 1917 and published the first edition of From Superman to Man the same year. By the time he was serious about his mission, the research into the origins of the human race had found out that to be accomplished, you did not have to be white, in the American definition of the word. Also, most importantly, that slavery was not an inherently black condition or fate, that slavery had been around throughout recorded history. During his early years in the States, he helped several of his siblings with their passage to the States. He was friendly with all of them, but one had to understand that he was a man with a mission, which they did not share. Their concerns in life were different from his. They had families, they had livings to make, lived in white neighborhoods, and can certainly not be blamed if they were less than eager to listen to his latest findings in his research all the time, passing or not had nothing to do with that, very much apart from the fact that in surroundings divorced from his research, he questioned of his color of lack thereof did not enter either. However, having had the early experience of his father siring 11 children and the emotional deprivation he felt, he was a confirmed bachelor for most of his life. Also, with the sheer volume of his work, his books, his pamphlets, his articles, the fact that he traveled so extensively and lived for long stretches at a time in Paris, there really was no room in his life for a wife for most of his life. Joel moved to New York City in 1921, where he met George S. Schuler, who became his lifelong friend. He began to write for all the important Negro publications of his day, i.e., The Messenger, the Pittsburgh Courier, the Amsterdam News, writing for the latter two until his death in 1966. He also met H.L. McKinnon and wrote for American Mercury. Even in the 1920s, George Schuler states in his book, Black and Conservative, that Joel had a tremendous knowledge of the historical background of the Negro, and especially the Missy generation around the world. He took his first trip to Europe in 1925. He went to Paris in 1927, to Germany in 1928, to Egypt in 1930, back to Paris, and also to Ethiopia, where as a correspondent for the Amsterdam News, he covered the coronation of Rastafari as he became the Emperor Haile Selassie in 1935. He went back to Ethiopia to cover the Abyssinian, or the Abyssinian War. Oh my goodness. Over the years, while retaining a residence in New York, with the exception of World War II, he made Paris his headquarters, doing his research from there at the Bibliothèque Nationale, at the British Museum in London, in Copenhagen, Oslo, Stockholm, Berlin, spending his time in museums, art galleries, antiquarian bookstores, churches. While in New York, he went daily to the Rare Book Room in the New York Public Library. The Rare Book Room. Certain people were not allowed in there, but because he was passing for something other than what he was, I guess he was allowed in. Though Joel was an American citizen, he found life in Europe, especially in Paris, very congenial, and gained recognition in France as well as England early on. Recognition in the US was much longer in coming and really quite spotty, though he did have his admirers, as I especially found out after his death. However, I never felt the recognition he had here was enough, considering the work he had done for others, helping to give them a leg up in the world and the intellectual wherewithal to do something with their lives. I always felt, and voiced it at the time, that had he used his brilliant mind and his dedication and tenacity for, say, cancer research, he would have had a Nobel Prize and the financial rewards instead of the hand-to-mouth existence he lived most of his life, plus a lack of appreciation. For some people, it's about the work. It's not about the dollars. While he did not disagree with my sentiments, he always felt that he would come into his own once he was gone, that he would be vindicated, which proved to be true. Anyway, he did what he wanted to do and lived the life he wanted to live, and he died a happy and fulfilled man. And isn't that what living is all about? He uses knowledge in his weekly columns in the Pittsburgh Courier, the Amsterdam News, the Chicago Defender, and other publications. Thus, he popularized Black history, and he was recognized as an authority on the history of African people, or race, and race relations. His columns on history were read by the general reader, and were meant to give him a sense of self-worth, and the feeling that he could become somebody in his own right, and was not inferior to anyone. He fervently believed in the right to an equal chance at the starting gate of life, unencumbered with a sense of inferiority. He believed in one race, the human race, and that color was meaningless and did not stand in the way of achievement. Thus, nature knows no color line. I think that's one of his books. He made the attempt to locate Africa's proper place on the maps of human geography. He had found in his research that the Egypt of the pharaohs was not a white country by looking at Egyptian art. Egypt had a profound influence on Greece, and not the other way around, that the white man's civilization was only a continuation of African civilizations of antiquity. All findings that did not make him very popular, but that have been validated in the meantime. Charles Darwin predicted that the deepest roots of human evolution would be found in Africa. Joel also came across Dr. L.S.B. Leakey's research and find of fossils in the Olduvai Gorge in East Africa, proving that earliest man did indeed arise in Africa. Just recently, a team of paleontologists from the University of California at Berkeley, led by Dr. Tim D. White, have broken a critical time barrier and found in Ethiopia the fossils of the oldest direct human ancestor, giving him the name Australopithecus ramidus. I hope I don't bite my tongue trying to wrap it around some of these names. Australopithecus ramidus. As was generally the case, J.A. Rogers came across information, publicized it, was considered controversial, and was way off base in his statements and conclusions. Then subsequent research found him to be correct and could go beyond it, thereby validating it. Dr. Leslie C. Dunn of Columbia University, who was one of his country's leading geneticists, disproved the notion that the contribution of each parent blends in the child. These studies also have destroyed the old blood theory and contradict former views of fixed and absolute biological differences among the races. Geographic isolation, migration of populations, and especially mutations of genes have created subgroups. Dr. Dunn argued, but these differences do not imply a basic difference of race. The New York Times, March 20, 74. Much was made in his Joel's lifetime in the States, though not in Europe, where he was recognized early on, of the fact that he was not a man of academic letters. That very much misses the point. He was a man who had learned idiomatic German, French, and Spanish, and could do his research in all these languages, besides English, and speak the language fluently. He did the legwork and knew what to look for in his research. To try to evaluate his contribution to anthropology, racial origins, historical research in the light of today's basic academic requirements before anybody can get a foot in the door. Somewhere is to look for Henry Ford's degree in engineering, John D. Rockefeller's degree in geology, etc. Advanced education was very rare at that time, and the fact certainly neither stopped Henry Ford, nor Rockefeller, nor anybody else. Time marched on there too, and today's cars are as far removed from the early cars. Oil drillings has evolved greatly, and so on. In his research all over the world, by looking at the artifacts firsthand, he compiled a body of history as a pioneer with all the glories and drawbacks of a pioneer. Telling you, man, it feels like March or April. Decades ahead of his time, a work that will stand as his monument and will have to be referred to in any U.S. teaching of integrated history. Integrated in the proper meaning of the word. History taught in its proper perspective, without trying to gloss over historical facts for one reason or another. In his book, Africa's Gift to America, Joel stated that more than one half the world's cotton was grown by the black man in the South by 1918. He perceived it as the black man's crop. Professor Robert W. Fogel, who won the Nobel Memorial Prize in Economic Science for 1993 in Stockholm, wrote a book on slavery, Time on the Cross, in 1974, in which he argued that the owners of slaves looked upon slaves as economic assets and treated them as well as livestock, that slavery was an efficient system for growing cotton, and that the system collapsed for political and not economic reasons. The New York Times, October 13, 1993. As John H. Clarke stated in his introduction to World's Great Men of Color, Volume 1, in Biographical Research, Rogers journeyed further and accomplished more than any other writer before him. Also, in more than 45 years of travel and research, 2 generations, he, more than any other writer of his time, attempted to affirm the humanity of the African personality and to show the role of the African people have played, and to show the role that the African people have played in the development of human history. This was singularly he major this was singularly he major mission of his life. I think there's a typo there. It should probably be this was singularly his major mission of his life. It was also the legacy that he left to his people and the world. As the New York Times book review on February 4th, 1973, written by John Ralph Willis, had it, in reviewing world's greatest men of color, Rogers' reputation rests on two foundations. He brought African biography out of the backwater of world literature, and he removed the great undiscussable of sex, race as a formidable taboo for professional review. He did more than anyone else in the field, and had his writings been headed, maybe he would not have the awful mess with our schools. I will read that again. He did more than anyone else in the field, and had his writings been heeded, maybe we would not have the awful mess with our schools, with the inner cities. He married when he thought that he had most of his work completed, and therefore a free mind for yet another adventure, marriage. However, Africa's gift to America, as well as the 5 Negro presidents, were written subsequently. Still, he put as much effort into being a lovely husband as he had previously put into his work. He had a stroke while in Washington, D.C., where we visited friends. We had spent all day at the National Gallery and the Smithsonian Institution, where he found interesting things for his new book. He planned to go back to the Library of Congress the next week for further research on the Olmecs. While he had established long ago that there had been migration from Africa to South America around 500 AD, again, something only validated after his lifetime, which accounted for some of the Siganomes he found on the monuments. He wanted to write in depth about the Olmecs. He died on March 26 in 1966 in New York. His work is his own monument to a brilliant, committed, high idealistic man. To quote him, do we consider a man great because of the degree to which his life and actions affected humanity? World's Great Men of Color, Volume 1. How and why this book was written. Using this criterion alone, he was a great man. Avec, Atik, Avail. There are more things in heaven and earth than are dreamt of in your philosophy. That's a quote from Shakespeare. And now we have a quiz. Who's ready for a quiz? In what very important respect of population does the Afro-American differ now from all the other various groups of which the United States is composed, including the Indian, but is like the French, German, English, Belgian, and other peoples in Europe? Question 2. When did the seizure of a Negro woman as a slave in the United States lead to a war of 2 years in the United States in which 20.026 U.S. Army troops were engaged, and during which a troop of 110 white soldiers was led by a trusted Negro into a trap where all but 4 were massacred? Question 3. In what American state is marriage between white and black legal? In one part of the state and punishable with 2 years imprisonment in the other part. Question number 4. A Negro girl saved George Washington from certain death at the beginning of the Revolution. Who was she? Question number 5. When did Abraham Lincoln order back into slavery 500,000 or more Negroes who had been declared free by one of his subordinates? Question 6. What American vice president, because of his color and his features, was publicly denounced in Congress and in the press as being a Negro? And he was. Question 7. Beside the fact that the 13th Amendment abolished slavery, what most amazing fact is true of it? And now we start with the 100 amazing facts about the Negro. Fact number 1. The white population of New York is a third more illiterate than the Negro one. Fact number 2. Benjamin Banneker, a Negro astronomer, made the first clock made in America in 1754. Fact number 3. The word coffee comes from Kaffa, Ethiopia, where it was first used and where it still grows wild. Fact number 4. George Washington sent a Negro slave to Barbados to be exchanged for a hogshead of molasses, a cask of rum, and other good old spirits in 1776. Fact number 5. The Negro arrived in the New World free from tuberculosis and syphilis or other venereal disease. Livingstone, the famous African missionary and a medical doctor, says syphilis dies out in the African interior. It seems incapable of prominence in any form in persons of pure African blood. Syphilis originated in Europe in 1494 when there was a great epidemic of it. As this was 2 years after the discovery of the New World, it was erroneously believed to have been brought back by the sailors of Columbus. It was not. Fact number 6. The arts. The Negro was the first artist. The oldest drawings and carvings yet discovered were executed by the Negro peoples over 15,000 years ago in southern France, northern Spain, Palestine, South Africa, and India. The drawings are on rocks, the carvings on bone, basalt, and ivory. Fact number 7. Still under the topic of the arts. The oldest known representation of the human body is that of a Negro woman. It was carved by a Negro sculptor of Grimaldi's race from 10,000 to 15,000 years ago. It is called the Venus of Willendorf, after the place in Austria where it was found, and is in the Vienna Museum. Fact number 8. Beethoven, the world's greatest musician, was without a doubt a dark mulatto. He was called the Black Spaniard. His teacher, the immortal Joseph Haydn, who wrote the music for the former Austrian national anthem, was colored too. Do you see why I'm loving this book? Jose Vascoles Iwan Netrego Poeta, born of African Congo parents at Algoma, Mexico, about 1710, wrote verses that were so popular that they entered into Mexican folklore and were printed annually on the calendars of Mexico until 1872, 120 years after his death. Ancient civilizations. That's the topic we're under with fact number 10. The Grimaldi, a Negro race. A Negro race lived in Europe as late as 12,000 years ago. 2 complete Grimaldi skeletons are in the Museum of Monaco near Monte Carlo. Abundant traces of their culture have been unearthed in southern and central Europe. Fact number 11. Elma, a mighty Negro civilian. No, I really should wear my glasses. It's getting dark. The printing is small. And I'm not wearing my glasses. Elam, a mighty Negro civilization of Persia, flourished about 2900 BC and is perhaps older than Egypt or Ethiopia. One of its later Negro kings, Nakunata, Kedar Nakunata, conquered Chaldea and Babylon and brought back to his capital, Susa, rich treasures, among which was a famous statue of the goddess Nana. Later it became the capital of Cyrus the Great and Darius. Susa is the Shushan of the Bible, where Esther, the Jewess, sought the favor of King Ahasuerus of Persia and Ethiopia. I have to beg your forgiveness. I will mispronounce words and I will misread sentences. So I ask your patience and your forgiveness. Cheapus, a Negro, built the Great Pyramid, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. It is 451 feet high and has 2,500,000 blocks of granite, each 2.5 tons, covers 13 acres, took 100,000 men 30 years to build, and was completed in 3730 BC. That was fact number 12. Fact number 13. There were at least 18 Ethiopians or unmixed Negro rulers of ancient Egypt, the best known of which is Pikanini. Leaving his country in Central Africa, Pikanini conquered all Egypt to the mouth of the Nile in 750 BC. Fact number 14. The Ganges, the sacred river of India, is named after an Ethiopian king of the name who conquered Asia as far as this river. Fact number 15. The most ancient lineage in the world is that of the Ethiopian royal family. It is said to be older than that of King George the Sixth by 6,130 years. The Emperor Haile Selassie I, ruler of Ethiopia, traces his ancestry to King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba, and beyond that to Cush, 6,280 BC. Negroes, fact number 16. Negroes lived in America thousands of years before Columbus. Central American monuments show numerous carvings of them as gods. When Columbus came to the New World, Negroes had been crossing from Africa to South America, a distance of 1,600 miles. The first white men to reach the American mainland tell of seeing Negroes. Columbus, who visited South America, said that he had heard of them there. Fact number 17. The present Negro race of Africa perhaps did not originate there, but Asia and Oceania. The earliest inhabitants of Africa were not black, but brown. Today, the people of mixed and unmixed Negro descent living in Asia and Oceania probably exceed in number the present Negro population of Africa. India has millions of Negroes. The purest Negro types are in agriculture, discovered a hetero, unknown Negro race, the Nakis, 200,000 in number in southern China in 1934. E.W.P. Chinnery discovered an unknown Negro people in New Guinea near Australia. He reports that they have a civilization superior to their neighbors who live under white rule. Imagine that. In the United States Army drafts in World War I, the Negro proved physically fitter than the white man. For every 100 men physically examined, the ratio of colored men found physically qualified for general military service was substantially higher than the ratio of the white men by just 5%, namely 74.60 against 69.71. Illiteracy and intelligence. That's the heading we're under now with fact number 19. The people of Southern Europe, including Italy and most of those of Eastern Europe, including Russia, are more illiterate than the Negroes of the United States. In 70 years, Negro illiteracy has fallen off about 80%. In 1870, it was 82%. In 1930, 16.3%. Fact number 20. Afro-American illiteracy is 3 times higher than the white one. Nevertheless, when certain states are matched against certain others, there are surprising comparisons. For instance, the Negroes of California, Minnesota, New York, and Nevada, South Dakota, Oregon, and Washington are less illiterate than the native whites of white parentage in Virginia, West Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Kentucky, Tennessee, Alabama, Arkansas, Louisiana, and Mexico. New York, Minnesota, Oregon, and South Dakota, Negroes are less illiterate than Mississippi whites. The Negroes of these 7 states are less illiterate by 100 to 400% than the foreign-born whites of all the states save one. In the United States Army, this is fact number 21, intelligence tests during World War I, the Negroes of Pennsylvania, New York, Illinois, and Ohio led the whites of Mississippi, Kentucky, Arkansas, and Georgia by from 1 to 7%. Fact number 22. 2 centuries ago, the Negroes of South Africa and the Northern Europeans both practiced a form of cannibalism that was strikingly similar. Of the vital organs of slain foes, the Negroes made muti, or charm, against evil. Sometimes they ate the heart of a brave man, believing that it gave added courage. The Europeans would roast or dry the bodies of hanged criminals. Of these they made mumia, a medicine for internal and external use, which was supposed to have peculiar curative charm. In 1683, when the Germans defeated the Turks at Offen, Switzerland, thousands of surrendered Turks were treated in this manner. An army surgeon who was present wrote, "None were given grace. All were massacred, and in most cases they were skinned, and the fatty parts were roasted, and the genitals cut off, dried, and put into big sacks, and of this they made precious mumia." Regular cannibalism existed in Germany as late as 1650. And we're under the heading Exploration for fact number 23. Estevanco, a Negro from Morocco, was one of a party of four to cross the North American continent in 1536 for the first time. The journey took 9 years. In 1539, he headed an expedition that discovered Arizona and New Mexico. Estevanco travels served to open up the Southwest and the states west of Florida as far as the Pacific. The founder of the city of Chicago was Baptiste Point de Sable, a Negro, in 1779. That was fact number 24. Fact number 25. Tib, a Negro trader in slaves and ivory from Zanzibar, East Africa, was the first civilized man to penetrate the center of Africa. He explored territory nearly as large as the United States. Stanley Wiseman, Cameron, and other white explorers followed in his path. He died in 1905, very rich. Fact number 26. For 2,234 years, human beings had been trying to reach the top of the world. Thousands of lives and millions of dollars were lost in the attempt. On April 6, 1909, Matthew Henson, a New York Negro, was the first of a party of 6 to do so. He is now, 1943, the only human being alive to have stood there. The first Arctic explorer was Pytheas, a Greek who perished in the attempt in 325 BC. We're now under the heading Science and Invention. Fact number 27. Jan Ernest Max Ziegler, a Dutch West Indian Negro living in Lynn, Mass, invented the first machine for sewing the soles of shoes to the uppers. The invention, which was 11 years in the making, revolutionized the industry and gave shoe supremacy to the United States. It made several millionaires, one of whom left $4 million to Harvard University. Overwork and privation. Aston met Ziegler to his grave in 1889 at the age of 37. Wow, he accomplished all of that by age 37. He left a few shares of stock to a white church, which later saved it from being sold for debt. Still under science and invention. Fact number 28. George Washington Carver of Tuskegee Institute, one of the world's greatest agricultural chemists, was awarded the Roosevelt Medal in 1939 for distinguished service in the field of science. From the peanut, he has extracted 285 products, and from the sweet potato, 118. Dr. Carver was born a slave. Thomas Edison once offered him a large salary to take charge of one of the Edison laboratories, but Carver refused in order to continue the work he had begun with Booker T. Washington at Tuskegee Institute. And we're under the heading Jews and Ethiopians for fact number 29. The Mohammedans believe that Moses was a black man. Their Bible, the Quran, says so. God told Moses to put his hand into his bosom. The Quran says that he came out white. The commentators declare that Moses' hand could not have been white before, and that the miracle Jehovah intended was making the black skin white and then turning it black again. The Septuagint, or Greek Bible, agrees with the Quran. And fact number 30 under Jews and Ethiopians. The characters of the Bible are largely Negroes. The Jews were slaves to the Egyptians for nearly 430 years. Only 70 Jews went to Egypt with Jacob. The Bible says that 600,000 men left with Moses, which according to Haushofer meant a total of 3,154,000, with women and children. For this large number to have left mixing with the Egyptians, who were black, must have taken place on a vast scale. About 12 million Negroes were brought to the New World. Imagine how much of their Negroes were brought, Imagine how much of their original color and culture the latter would take with them should they return to Africa, and you realize how much of the original Jew remained. In only those 70 Jews after 4 centuries, Tacitus, Roman historian of 90 AD, says that the Romans of his day popularly believed that the Jews which then abandoned in Europe came from Ethiopia, the land of the blacks. The present white color of the European and American Jew is very likely due to the same cause as the fair skin and straight hair of large numbers of Negroes. The Bible classes the Ethiopian and the Jew together. Are ye not as the children of Ethiopia unto me, O children of Israel, saith the Lord? Chaldea, the land in which the Jews originated, was also a Negro land. Hence, Abraham might also have been black. There's no might about it. Abraham was black. I'm going to leave it there for now. And next time we will pick up under the heading of Jews and Ethiopians with fact number 31. You know what? I'm not going to leave it there, because there are only 2 more facts under this heading. So I'm just going to finish them and pick up with fact number 33 under the heading medicine. Fact number 31. The Falashas of Negro Jews of Ethiopia, led by Queen Judith, put the line of Solomon and the Queen of Sheba off the throne of Ethiopia in 937 AD and ruled for 40 years. The Falashas assert that they are the original Jews. They call themselves the Beta Israel, or the chosen people. The Negro Jews of India are not permitted to enter the same synagogues as the white ones, nor to bury their dead in the same cemeteries. I will leave it there, and I want to say, if you've enjoyed your time with me, I humbly request that you like, share, subscribe, and comment. And if you haven't enjoyed your time with me, I hope that you've learned something. And once again, Tawada to Cicely for sending me this book. I'm thoroughly enjoying it. And I know last time I said that there were some topics I was looking into discussing, one being the baby mama topic, and also the book The International Jew. They are still on the list to do, but when I got this book and got the request to share it with you, I decided to go that route. But until next time, I wish you Baruch, and I would like to say Shabbat Shalom Shabbata, and Baruch Shalom.